Hello, sports fans. This is Wilson. So I wanted to check back in with you guys about a couple things. The first being Vince McMahon's comments in the TMZ um, Hulk Hogan documentary, which is titled "The Real Hulk Hogan," about the late great wrestling legend. Vince sat down with Harvey Levin. I didn't watch the actual documentary. I just saw some clips on social media. And Vince said a few things. Um, The first was that Harvey was talking about that Vince must have had real mixed emotions watching the WWE do their 10 bell salute or their tribute to Hulk on that episode. I think it was Raw, right? And he must have had mixed emotions. And Vince said, yeah, that's basically okay. That was how he felt. Obviously based on his history and his relationship with Hogan. Vince also said that he didn't like the way that Hulk was brought out at the Hogan made his last public WWE appearance during the Netflix premiere. He said he didn't like the way that Hulk was brought out. That Hulk deserved more than that. And of course, that was when Hogan was booed, pretty. It was more. I mean, I think you could hear some cheers in there, but it was mostly it was not a positive response from the crowd. And you know, so Vince had that to say, and the thing I think that maybe has gotten the biggest reaction was Vince saying that Vince talking about of course the situation that when Hogan passed away uh, was the source of great consternation, I guess, among the public. It's like half the people are like, we just Hulk Hogan was great. He brought so much to wrestling, and may he rest in peace. And the other half is basically you know dancing on his grave, right? Because of the comments that he made uh, many years ago. That were actually taped secretly, in which basically racist comments, right, about blacks, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. And this is what Vince had to say, and I'm reading the quote here. Hat tip to Fightful Wrestling. They do some really good wrestling write-ups, I discovered today. Uh, but Vince said, "I knew he wasn't racist. I've been with him for so many years. He wasn't racist. He said some racist things. He should pay for that, and he did. In the end, I think everyone saw the real Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, and they felt, wait a minute, this guy doesn't act like a racist. He's not a racist. We all make mistakes. That was a big one, but he wasn't a racist." And you know, so Hogan was removed from the WWE Hall of Fame initially, and as Vince said, the WWE they cut all ties with him, but he was reinstated in 2018. And according to Fightful, Vince was defending his decision when he made those comments to Harvey Levin. And the one that people kind of, the part of that quote that people kind of singled out and focused on was Vince saying he wasn't racist. He said some racist things. Now, in that same clip, Hulk said that he was racist. There was a clip uh, that, that leaked those years ago. I think it was 2015 when it leaked, but the comments were made in like 2008, 2007, 2008, something one of those years. And also in the clip, Hogan said that he was racist to a point. Racist to a point. That was his exact words. And I kind of hinted at this when I talked about his legacy uh, in the immediate aftermath of his passing. Um, you know, we're all the racism thing, right? Right? Everybody behind closed doors um, is a is racist to a point, as Hogan said. Uh, I mean, unless you're like one of the, I don't know. I mean, I know a couple. I guess I have a friend who's super liberal, um, and he's pretty much, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, do even the super duper liberals, do they say some racist things behind closed doors, or are they so liberal that they don't even? I mean, they've just completely, uh, that part of themselves that looks and makes observations about other races that you know may be accurate. Um, have they just completely removed that part of themselves? I don't know, but the super duper liberals are not really, they're not really normal people, right? If I'm talking about normal people, right? Most normal people, it doesn't matter what race you are. When you're behind closed doors, you'll say some things that some people might call bigoted or racist or whatever it is, and I don't think that makes you a racist. What makes you a racist? I don't think the speech itself uh, makes you a racist. I think if you're what makes you a racist is if you discriminatory, if you deny someone some opportunities based on their race, if you decide, I will never socialize with such people. I'll never be around such people. I'll never live amongst such people. That would be more like racism, you know. But if you just make some observations, to me that's not racism. It's like Ron Artest said once. He said, I don't remember what they were talking about. You know how Ron Artest was back in the day. Yeah. And Artest goes, well, I mean, I'm not hitting nobody, I'm not smacking nobody, I'm not kicking nobody in the back of the head, right? Something like that. And it's like, as long as you're not doing that, as long as you're not denying me employment, as long as you're not disrespecting me, as long as you're not discriminating against me in some way, uh, to me, that's not really racist. I mean, the Ku Klux Klan is racist. You know, what they did back during Jim Crow, that was racist. You know, Hulk Hogan. I mean, he worked with a lot of black talent in wrestling over the years. I do remember when someone said, I don't remember if it was Teddy Long who said, I think they said, I don't know if it was Hogan or Flair. I don't know. Let me not say it because I'm not sure. They said that somebody called him an N-word, right? But like I said, once again, to me, speech itself is not, it cannot make one racist. Like Patrice O'Neal said, Patrice said, what the hell is hate speech? Why can't I hate you? you know, it's like as long as I'm not doing anything to you, I'm okay. I understand that if you hate somebody based on their race, that would make you racist. But I'm saying to a lesser degree of, you just make observations about different races, things that annoy you. Does that make you racist? I don't think it does. Like Hoke said, he said he's racist to a point, right? So he's not, he would, if he had the chance, he wouldn't go around lynching black people, right? But he didn't want his daughter going with some, with the black guy unless he was a, super rich black guy. So, I mean, to me, that's just your personal preference. We all have preferences, right? Um, you know, I mean, I got friends who are, I went to school with a bunch of Hispanics. The whole black Hispanic thing is like, it's a thing out here in Los Angeles, and it's really, the race relations between blacks and Hispanics is dicey. Um, but I went to school with a lot of Hispanics, and they I remember one of them saying he was a good friend of mine back then. We got along really well. And him saying that I remember him saying like he said I'm not racist. I just don't prefer blacks to my own kind, right? And it's the same thing the Asian man has said. He's like, he's not racist. I just prefer my own kind. And I think I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. You know, I think that integration and you know, it was only ever blacks who were so desperate to be accepted by another race, the way that we were desperate to be accepted by whites. Our goal should have been during Jim Crow was just take your foot off our necks, leave us be, and let us, live. Um, Let us live our lives. You know, um, I think that's how that should have went instead of us, being so desperate to be able to use a white restroom or a white water fountain and be able to sit in a white restaurant and sit at the bar or whatever and eat or drink or whatever. It's like, who cares about that? We should have, once upon a time we did have our own industry. Now we don't have that anymore. The Hispanics and the Asians came into I mean, first of all, we came into, I was just listening to something yesterday. Uh, Vader was talking to Steve Austin. I'm not sure if Vader is still alive or not. I'm sorry. I've been a wrestling fan, but it's hard to keep up with some of these things. But I've been a wrestling. I mean, I was a wrestling fan from, when I was a kid, and I stopped wrestling when I was like, you know, 16 or so. Which was over 20 years ago now. But Vader was someone I obviously remember when I was a kid. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. But it was an interview with Stone Cold, and he was talking about how he grew up in Compton, right? And um, also I know that the Bush family at one point, I think the dad, the old man Bush, the first Bush president, had like a furlough or something, and the family was living in Compton, and that's what a lot of people don't understand is that the community when you think of Compton and Watts and these type of places where blacks, when we migrated from the South, we came and we settled. Now like L.A. they call it South L.A. now. It used to be called South Central, but South Central ended up having like a negative connotation because of all the gangs and stuff like that. And but when we first got here and we moved in these neighborhoods, like Compton was if you go back before we came here, it was a white neighborhood. You know, these were white communities and they were nice communities with nice families in them. You know, and then when we moved in, that's when the white flight happened and the whites moved out. Out of these areas to different parts of Los Angeles. And but so we move in and now we take over these communities, and then but the Hispanics come shortly after that, and the Asians don't live in these communities, but they set up businesses in our communities. They set up places. They have Louisiana Fried Chicken is run by Asians. They set up laundromats, set up different places, and of course the Hispanics have all their little businesses and stuff like that. And we don't really have the same type of industry that we had during Jim Crow. And I think, and I talked about it when I talked about Sinners, the movie. That was one of my main takeaways. Is like that night, and I think that's one of the points maybe that Cooper was trying to make with the film. Is that night when the before the sun went down, or before the vampires showed up, the time the blacks were having in there at that juke joint was like, that was like Black Utopia, basically, you know. And, you know, we never really got to experience that as free people. I mean, as free people, yeah, but outside of, you know, after the end of Jim Crow, because as soon as Jim Crow ended, we decided we wanted to integrate with the white race, and we ended up losing our own industry, our own sense of community. Um, but what was my point? Oh yeah, the black Hispanic thing, right? So, um, you know, the blacks and the Hispanics don't really, historically haven't really mixed well. The gangs don't mix, you know. Uh, in prison, they don't mix, you know. So, I know in prison it's separated by race anyway. But basically, the relationship between the blacks and the Hispanics in this country is tedious at best. Uh, but I went to school, like I said, I mean, I've always got along with Hispanics, right? But I'm sure that none of the Hispanics that I went to school with, they wouldn't, want to see their sisters race mixing with blacks. You know, I know it for like my, I can only say so much, man. But I know that especially a lot of older Hispanics, they don't like the race mixing thing. They don't even like it. If you saw the clip with Duno, you know, the podcast, the social media personality, where he was talking about like even with the Hispanics don't even like it they don't even like darker skinned Hispanics. You know, they don't like them. You know, a lighter skinned Hispanic is considered like a higher class than a darker skinned Hispanic. You know, so but like I said, you know, it's people I went to school with. They prefer their own, but I got along with them well. They got along with the other blacks well. You know, so and they're like, you know, there's a lot of blacks who, you know, they're pro-Trump as far as his immigration thing is going. Before Trump was talking about it, they were basically in their own way they were calling for it. It is what it is, man. You know, so does that make you a very, very virulent racist? I don't know. I would say as long as you're not, like I said, actively discriminating against someone, harming someone, then whatever your preferences are and whatever your personal opinions are that you express behind closed doors, that shouldn't be held against you. I don't think. So I think Vince, he was on to something when he made those comments about Hogan. Now, the other thing I want to say about Vince is that Vince, I don't understand how WWE, because somebody phrased it as like he didn't like that he wasn't invited to to Hogan's the Hogan tribute at WWE. It's like, does Vince need an invitation to be invited to any WWE event? I know he stepped down or whatever, but it's Vince McMahon. You know, I was watching the McMahon documentary for the first time. And the thing I didn't understand is I thought that the dad was a little bit more influential in what the WWF became, but really, where the WWF was when the dad was in charge, and where it was after Vince took control of the company after he bought his dad out, is really just a night and day difference. I mean, Vince completely transformed wrestling and sports entertainment with what he did once he took over for his dad. You know, so the idea that Vince McMahon would need an invitation to show up to any WWE event, Vince McMahon is the WWE. You know, if not for Vince McMahon, I mean, think about. I mean, it's like I understand that. You know, wrestling is something that, like, my dad watched wrestling. My dad watched, Gorgeous George, right? And Freddie Blassie and Ernie Ladd and Rocky Johnson, right? So wrestling always appealed to males going way back, even before Vince McMahon Jr. But I mean, I think anybody can agree. I mean that the best wrestling happened once Vince McMahon took over, starting with, in the 80s. I mean, with WrestleMania and with Hulkamania. I mean, Vince McMahon oversaw all of that, the onset of it. And so for him to not be able to come to a WWE event without an invite is baffling me. All right, let me switch gears here. I talked about college football last week, and it got a pretty good response. So I'm going back to the well again, and I wanted to say something about USC, who now the top 25 team in the AP poll. I don't think they were top 25 team in the coaches poll. I remember when Joe Klatt did his top 25 before either of the official polls came out. Not only was USC not in his top 25, but they also weren't in his first 5 out. Right? So not only were they not a top 25 team for Joe Klatt, but they weren't a top 30 team. But I look at this USC team, and the thing about it is, it's not like I think they're that good. I can see why. Because I think when they rank the teams, when they do these rankings, the rankings are based on just how good do you really think this team is, and not how well can they do against their schedule, right? But USC has it. I don't think USC. The people that USC lost were significant. They lost Quentin Joyner, who was going to be the starting running back this year, to Texas Tech. They lost Zach Branch, who had something of a sophomore slump, or at least didn't make a jump as a sophomore. As a freshman, he was I think a first-team All-American as a return man. He didn't even really do well. He didn't perform well in the return game even last year. But still, that's the guy who was a 5-star. If he could have had a bounce-back year, well, now he's at Georgia, right? They also lost Kyron Hudson to Penn State. Penn State expected to be, again, one of the best teams in the country, as always, under James Franklin. And they also lost Deuce Robinson to Florida State. So those are some key guys, some really talented guys that USC lost that just would have made them, I think, more formidable just on paper. Just the idea of them, if they bring all those guys back, who should, this is the money year for pretty much all of those guys, right? And so they lost those guys. They did bring in Eli Sanders, who rushed for 1,000 yards last year in New Mexico. He's going to be the replacement for, Woody Marks was the guy last year. Quentin Joyner was the backup. He was supposed to be the man this year, but he transferred out. So Eli Sanders is going to be the new starting running back. I forget the backup's name, the other kid's name. I don't know. I'm sure he'll contribute. But and the guys that they brought in, they brought in Zacharias Williams from Utah. We'll see what he can bring. I mean, the thing about it is the USC is one of those, has become a program that is known for the wide receivers that it produces. Just last year, USC had 2 guys in the top 5 in receiving in the NFL, and St. Brown and Drake London. Michael Pittman has been a pretty good receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster started strong. He's tailed off since then. Yeah, they're one of those schools that gets the wide receiver tag. So that probably, and of course, the receivers that they were top 2 were they're returning. One, Jacoby Lane, the big, 6'5", super freak receiver, and the other one, Mekhi Lemon. We're talking about, the number 1 rated receiver in his in the upcoming draft class. And then I think the key though is that at quarterback, if Jaden Mayava kind of reminds me of like a Colin Kaepernick, taller, probably not as fast as prime Colin Kaepernick, but just the way he plays the game. Someone who, and he was at UNLV, he transferred in last year. Um, has he sits at first behind Miller Moss and takes over in the last. He started 4 games for them last year, and played pretty well when he started. Um, he's just one of those guys who, you know, more of an athlete than a pure pocket quarterback. And I love the way he can extend plays. The key for him is how much growth has he made as a passer after spinning out. He's had more than a full year, a year and a half now in Lincoln Riley's system, and we'll see the type of jump he's made. And then, of course, playing behind him is the big time recruit Hudson Longstreet, who's going to be a true freshman. But Jaden Maiava, if he can make a leap in year 2 to be someone who makes better decisions, better passing the ball, and that would just add on to what he can do as someone who can extend plays and make plays with his legs. If you look at this USC team, if you look at their schedule, they start off with 2 home games against Missouri State and Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, coached by the man Lincoln, coached by the man Lincoln Riley replaced in Clay Helton, who I once took a picture with. And then it's at Purdue. Then it's Michigan State on the Michigan State is at the Coliseum. Then it's at Illinois. Then it's Michigan State at the Coliseum. Then it's at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. Then Northwestern and Iowa back at the Coliseum. On the road at Oregon. And then lastly, UCLA at the Coliseum. If you look at that schedule, I mean, obviously Oregon and Notre Dame. Notre Dame was in the national championship game last year. Oregon is Oregon. But Michigan was so last year. USC went on the road last year and almost beat them. But Michigan is not what they were under Jim Harbaugh. Michigan State is, typically a pretty good program, but that's going to be at the Coliseum. I mean, that is one to watch out for. But you look at the rest of these games. I mean, Purdue, Illinois, even on the road. I know Nebraska has Matt Rule, don't they? But, it's something to watch. Matt Rule's a good football coach. Something to watch out for, and it is on the road. But, also Northwestern, Iowa. I mean, Iowa is still a Big Ten. It's still Iowa. But, and then UCLA, they got the kid from Tennessee at quarterback. Maybe they have the best quarterback in the crosstown rivalry now. But, just look at that schedule. That's a damn easy schedule. That's the type of schedule. Imagine USC having this schedule. Shoot. Even the best Clay Helton teams with Sam Darnold, they're having a time with this schedule. Let alone the Pete Carroll team. The Pete Carroll team is obviously, they're right at this table. Except for Oregon, maybe. So, I just think this is a USC team that if Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane take the next step as expected, Eli Sanders, as I said, talented player. If the defense can be just as good as it was last year, when Danton Lynn improved them so much, once again, this is a schedule-based argument. It's not really a talent-based argument. The talent-based argument is going to come. They have the number 1 ranked recruiting class in 2026. So that's when it's going to start to be, okay, can USC really, step back into the forefront of college football with one of the most stacked rosters in the country? They made some changes there. They brought in a GM. I think his name was Chad Bowman. I think he came from Notre Dame, and he's kind of fixed the local recruiting scene that Lincoln Riley had, pretty much abandoned, which is crazy because the most talent-rich states in college football are uh, Florida is one, Georgia is one, I think Texas, and California for sure. California is one of the top three in college football. So how do you Lincoln Riley, just because you're from the South and you saw your years coaching in the South, you go and you come here and we're only recruiting the South, and that means you're abandoning all the. That's like Alabama or Texas or one of those schools abandoning all the talent in the South and only recruiting California. You know, you got to take care of the home base first, and then you expand, which is what Pete Carroll did, and that's what USC is back to doing, at least if the 2026 class is any indication. So, you know, uh, I mean, next year will be the year where it's the true test of, the year after that, because you got to get the talent time to develop. But it's crazy because by then Lincoln will be in year 5 next year. So, uh, we'll see. I don't know if they would, if with that recruiting class coming in and with the new facility being built, if USC with this schedule struggles again this year, would that be enough for USC to move on from Lincoln Riley when they still owe him, $55 million, $60 million or whatever it is? I don't know. But if you look, I mean, there's really no excuse. I mean, at a certain point, Lincoln Riley, he needs to start, paying some dividends. And there's enough here that if you look at this schedule, and you think of USC and what they've been historically and the expectations they have, at least give me 8 wins, Lincoln Riley. You know what I'm saying? At least give me that. Is that it? I don't want to talk about LeBron. LeBron posted something on Instagram about his when he was in high school. And I remember when LeBron was in high school. I remember that he was, also a great football player. And he posted a picture from what looked like a newspaper of him in high school at St. Vincent St. Mary. And the caption he put says, 60 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 16 touchdowns my junior year at wide receiver. Anyways, you linebackers / cornerbacks / safeties can thank my homies I stayed over in the hoops lane. There would have been plenty of highlights mossed on y'all. And the picture he posted, a little newspaper clipping. The text says, the writing says, the number 1 football prospect in the state of Ohio probably won't be playing football much longer. Of course, I'm speaking of LeBron James, the nation's premier basketball prospect who was a taller, slower version of Randy Moss. On film, what I saw on film was a ball player ready-made for the NFL game at the wide receiver position. He's got huge hands, runs tremendous routes, can outleap every defender, and shows surprising speed for such a big guy. They listed him as 6'8", 232 pounds. And it has a 4.6 next to those dimensions. I don't know if that's his 40 speed or is that his star rating, because they also have like a little 5 little dots next to his name. But will LeBron have been a 5-star recruit coming out of? I just never has there been a 6'8"? Like, who's the biggest? How tall was Jimmy Graham? Could LeBron have been a Jimmy Graham like tight end in the NFL? It's possible, He is LeBron James. I mean, LeBron. He's a super freak athlete. I don't think there's any question LeBron would have been in the NFL if that was the lane he decided to stay in, or if he had chosen football over basketball. I don't think there's any question if he had stayed healthy, he would have been in the NFL. But, of course, he made the right decision. He wouldn't have made nearly as much money or been as famous if he had chosen football. But it is just an interesting thought experiment. Just like Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson's size only, he was listed at 6 foot. He probably wasn't like 5'10", 5'11". But, of course, Iverson, one of the best high school football players in the history of, Virginia. And one wonders, see, back then, a guy like Mike Vick, and Mike Vick was listed, I think, 6 foot, 6'1". Who knows how tall he really was? Could Allen Iverson have been a Mike Vick like quarterback possibly? Usually, I mean, you did have guys like Doug Flutie, who was really small, who played in the NFL, started for years. Iverson was such a spectacular athlete. Could Iverson have played in the NFL at quarterback and been like a precursor to what Kyler Murray is now? There just haven't been many guys that small who had success playing quarterback in the league. Iverson, like I said, 6 foot, listed at 6 foot, like 165 pounds. If he goes to college and plays football, probably beefs up, puts some muscle on. But it's just another interesting thing to think about, But yeah, I think for sure LeBron would have been in the NFL, been a huge end zone target, and just LeBron's just a dominant physical freak of nature. I don't have any question LeBron would have been a darn good, freakish NFL tight end, but he wouldn't be a billionaire, right? So obviously LeBron made the right decision. I know sometimes on this podcast I post a lot of stuff that, especially lately with the shenanigans he's been pulling ever since, that statement he and Rich put out on his behalf. But I mean, at the end of the day, bro, I was the biggest LeBron. Like it's not true probably, but I always say I was the first person from the West Coast who knew about LeBron. I was obsessed with LeBron when I was a freshman when he was a senior. So if I ever seem a little negative about it, I mean, at the end of the day, I love the guy's done. I mean, the guy hasn't really done any bad. He has some strange ways maybe that are kind of annoying, but he's one of the greatest athletes of all time. There's no question about that. All right. Before I get out of here, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Podcast Network, and to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network. You can also send feedback and mailbag questions to Complete Lakers Podcast at gmail.com. I am out.